Hello, welcome. So, I have a new side project that I'm working on, and I thought it'd be cool to try and uh, live code a design system in real time. See how this works. So, here we go. Let me hide my code here for a second. I made this little kind of prototype in CodePen last night. I was up till like 2 in the morning working on this. The idea, very simple, of this website is this is just pictures of dogs, of people that make websites, including myself. You see my two dogs here, Gino and Emily. And we have some of my favorite people in the biz that I follow and their lovely pups. Ziggy, one of my favorites, super cute. Layla Rose, one of my former colleagues' dogs, who has her own Instagram, by the way. Disco is another good one. All of these dogs are amazing. Jello's just Rainier McChedderton. Best name of all the dogs. I might have spelled that wrong. I might have to update that. Sorry, Rainier. Got some new submissions from some former coworkers. These are all great. So I'm excited to see what becomes of this project. And I think in this day and age with all the doom scrolling and all the, pandemic stuff and politics, like I just want to go to a place where all I do is just look at dogs. Just nothing but dogs. And this is that. So, let's get started. So here's what I have so far. I basically coded up the whole site. And just didn't add a whole ton of styles. Let's take a look at that. I built this in 11D, which is my jam. This is my work one. Let's see. Dogs of Dev. Why is that? Well, you see my proprietary CSS framework work. God forbid someone would steal it. So yeah, we have our kind of source directory here. We've got a data file that's just a JSON of dogs with various dog data that I populated manually. I would love to automate this at some point, but for now this is sufficient. I have my includes here with my kind of template. It's my header. We'll submit a dog link. You'll be able to do. Actually go right now to dogsof.dev. This is live. You can click on the submit a dog link. This will take you to the submit a dog page. And just follow these simple guidelines. Fill out some of the info here and add my pup, and this will use I'll show you this guy, app.netlify.com. Go in here and go to forms, and I'll actually get like submissions in here. Now maybe someday I can work on automating that, but that's a little beyond my expertise at the moment. So for now we're just going to style this thing up. I've got my dogs folder. This is just a list of dogs. And we have our images, which is all the dog names. Did spell Rainier wrong, but I think in my dogs.json I spelled it correctly. Yes, so we're good there. Marcy's dog is so cool. What else? Sass. So this is what we're going to be working in primarily. Right now I just have some super basic styles. We're going to blow all this up and start from scratch. So the first thing I like to do is make a little kind of Smax style folder structure in here. So new folder, we'll call this underscore tokens, and this will be kind of like where we store all of our design tokens. You could do this as Sass variables, as CSS custom properties, or CSS variables as they're also called. Really, it's up to you. I like to use Sass because everything compiles neatly, and unless I'm doing some JavaScripting stuff where I'm changing, I need to change tokens on the fly, which is infrequently, then I usually just go with the Sass variables. I like CSS variables, but there's a time and place for these things. So I got my tokens folder. Let's add a kind of a what do I call that? Base. This will have like global styles, like a reset I'll talk about. And then we have our we want our components. I do this for a living. This will be things like buttons, type styles, pretty much everything. And then we'll have a layout folder. And this will be like grid layouts, mostly just grid layouts, and it'll be super simple because I think I only have like one layout, so but we'll go through that. And then we'll add a utilities folder. And so I haven't written about this yet, but I'm working on a blog post called How I CSS in 2021, and I've come up with this sort of methodology that were very liberally not borrowed, but inspired, closely inspired by Andy Bell's Cube CSS methodology, which, if you haven't seen it, is great. But mine is simpler because it's only 3 letters, CUL, where components, layout, components, utilities, layout. I call it the cool methodology. It's dumb. I was just writing the thing up and realized that it made a cute little acronym, and I said, it's the cool methodology. So take that, Andy. One less letter. Base, components, layout, utilities, and then I'll add it here, even though I'm not going to use it, but I do a vendor. So this is like if you have like syntax highlighting or something like that, and you want to, instead of making a separate request for their CSS, you can just kind of bake that into your stuff. And then so essentially all of these Sass files that we make are just going to get pulled into here. So let's start with some tokens. We'll make a new file in here. Oops, what did I do? A new file in the tokens folder. It's just called _tokens CSS, right? And so these are your tokens, design tokens, right? Whoa, hey, chill out, autocomplete. So let's take a look at this thing. What I like to do is just take what's there, and rather than come up with all these tokens that we may or may not use. Usually you're building a system based on a thing that exists, whether that's a picture of a website or like an existing website. So like coming into my current job, they had an app already, right? So we weren't like designing a thing from scratch. So it was a matter of like looking what's there and pulling out common colors, common spacing values, common type sizes, and narrowing that down to a decent subset. And so usually the way that I do that, there's a site called CSSStats.com, and I can like plug in my website, for example. And my website isn't like super design system-y, but look at that, 13K of CSS will take it. So this is the color palette. That's pretty much it. If you run this on literally any other website, like a corporate website, like, I don't know, let's just say, think of some random site, Groupon.com. Let's see what happens. 239K. Here's 36 unique colors. Not bad. Some of these look similar. but maybe that's intentional. And then you have 38 unique background colors. So there's actually more background colors than there are like text colors. But a lot of that is because some of these have like transparency, or they're just like, they're calling it different things, right? And then type sizes, 57 unique type sizes. Everything from 6 viewport width down to, okay, this is getting crazy, 6 pixels. I don't know who's reading 6 pixel text, but not me. So, and then you have, font families. So we can like narrow this type of stuff down. Z-index, this is another prime thing for design tokens. Android's material design, or Google's material design, they basically look at elevation and shadow, and they kind of tie those together. And so you have like these planes where maybe like the bottom layer is the site, and then you have like a popover, and then above that maybe you have like a modal overlay, and then on top of that is like the modal level, right? So this 57 total, well, 20 unique Z indices. That's actually not bad. It was worse when I was there. But this is a result of like developers fighting with positioning, right? Having to position things absolutely, and then they throw in like, 10, that doesn't work. Let me try, 100. That doesn't work. 101. And they just start adding numbers until it works, right? And then you get this where they're just like, fuck it, and they just put 9999, right? So by tokenizing these, you can document in your system that says, okay, Z index of 0, that's the default. 100 is for tooltips, 200 is for this, 300 is for that, right? And you can make kind of these sensible things. And, sometimes you might need to eventually add something in between those values. And so I usually use like increments of 100, right? So you could just do throw 50 in there. Why not? And that kind of helps manage that stuff. So not to dunk on Groupon here, because I worked on this, so I'm partly to blame for this. But it used to be a lot worse, and we're getting better. So the CSS Stats, this is a good way to kind of at least see what you're working with, and then narrow those things down. Another thing I like to do, and I would be embarrassed to test these, is to use these colors and kind of figure out, okay, here's our background colors. Like, actually, let's do this, right? Like, I just picked these colors kind of arbitrarily. And so what I want to do is test the color contrast just to see if it's accessible. It's just a good thing to do. So let me inspect this thing, and let me widen this a little bit. So let's see, our body background color is Dodger blue, which equates to what? Here we go. This little X value here. So we can put this in the background color. Sorry, we want this to be the background, and foreground should be white. So this doesn't pass. We want this to be 4.5 to 1. So one thing you can do, let's see, tools and reference, colors. This is the WebAIM one. Oh wait, is there a thing in here? Yeah, so you can actually tweak this. You can tweak this thing basically until it passes. And so we can now take this value and go into CodePen. And let's see, we'll find this body background is Dodger blue. We can change that to this hex value. And it's a little bit darker, but not bad. And now this contrast between the background and the foreground is accessible. Whereas with Dodger blue, it was not. So this is our new color value. So we can actually take this. This can be our first token. So we'll say this is colors. And what I like to do is give these, instead of calling this like Dodger Blue or, you know, some brand name, we'll just call it Blue. And we'll call it Blue 600. This is super arbitrary. It's not based on anything, but I have this method where I can name these colors. Let's say you have multiple shades of blue. You can be assured that Blue 600 has been tested to meet accessibility on white backgrounds. And also, like, let's say we have we want a blue background, like a very subtle blue background. We can do like blue 50 is some color that still passes, that actually would be used as a background. So black, whatever our black color is, would be on that. I can show you an example of that. So this is our design system at Provi that I'm working on. In our color section, here's our color palette. So we have, you know, we're using like natural black here. Actually, I don't know if we use natural black. We largely use gray 800 for text. And 800 absolutely passes on a white background. So gray 600 is kind of like as light as you want to make it and still be accessible. And so the 600s are guaranteed to pass on 200s and above, I believe. All right. We might need to add some more colors here. It's definitely on my list of things to do, but generally the idea is you can make a general rule that colors ending in 600 pass, and you can make the scale whatever you want, right? But that anything ending in 600 will be accessible on a white or some other color's 200 value, right? So, and then you're not like constantly testing these things. And so here we have our blue value, right? We also have this button in here, which is probably not accessible either. It might be. Let's see, gold. I just use these like named colors because it's easy when I'm prototyping. What is it? Shift. There it is. So here's our gold, and we want to check this on a. Oops. Actually gonna, yeah, that's gonna be the background color, and our foreground's actually gonna be black. Whoopsie. So this is just oh. So that passes. That's good. So get rid of this. Get rid of this. And so this actually, the yellow color makes it even lighter. So that's good. So we're really only using 3 colors here. Blue. These 2 yellows. I can actually call this. We'll call this yellow 600. No, sorry. We'll call this yellow 800. And then we'll say yellow 600 will be like the highlight. And I will talk about kind of layers of tokens in a second here once I get through these colors. So on hover, I can actually have this highlighted. I can click this hover thing here and trigger the hover, and so now it's yellow, and I can click on this thing, just FF0, which is same as FF0000. And there you go. That's our color palette. Let's just, for shits and giggles, do white, which is Fs. And then we'll have our black in here, which let's just steal Provi's, just 262626. It's not like pure black. It looks a little less insane. And then I forget, am I using like a subdued? A lot of times with something like this, I'll make this something like a light gray. So it's a little bit subdued. So we'll call this gray 600. So we know 600 passes on a white background. There we go. There's our color palette. So I'll add some more tokens to that, but let's just continue down the color rabbit hole. You don't want to just like create tokens that equal hex values and call it a day, because what ends up happening is people will inevitably use these colors in combinations that weren't intended. So let's call, so I have like 3 layers of tokens, right? These are global tokens. Actually, so this will be colors inside of global tokens, right? And then we have contextual tokens. And this describes how these colors are used, right? So I don't want yellow text ever. Never want yellow text. So we'll say like our text. We'll say text body is black, right? Oops, this needs to be a colon. And then we'll say text inverse is white. So instead of saying like light and dark, like we don't know. We don't know if it's light or dark. So we can override these tokens later with a theme that basically swaps text body and text inverse, and everywhere those are used in the system, it will invert. But maybe the default is dark, right? And so these might be switched by default. So I like to use inverse instead of like light and dark. I think that's my food. Give me 1 second. I'll be right back. And I'm back. Okay, so what was I saying? Contextual tokens. So we have basically our text. The only text colors we use here are black and white, right? So these are in that context. So we're not using like blue 600 for text. Maybe for links, actually. Let's see. Did I on these? Oh, I didn't make subsequent pages for this demo. But yeah. So like text, instead of saying text link, I like to say text interactive, because maybe use it for more than just links. But not necessarily. So we'll say blue 600 is our link color also. So we'll probably these on the blue 600 background, we're going to use white for links, and on white background we'll use blue for links. Right, and we could have like a blue highlight, right? That's maybe text interactive is 800 and the highlight is 600 or something like that. So when you hover, it's still accessible, or vice versa, right? The link gets darker when you hover on it, or something like that. For now, we'll just leave it at that. And then we have like backgrounds, right? So background, we could just say like surface, right? Surface is a good word. I've been using that more lately. Surface. Let's see. You know what? I'm gonna stick to background. Background default. Or let's just say background body to be consistent with the text. Background body is blue 600. Background button is yellow 600. Maybe we have like background button highlight. Sorry, this should be yellow. Wait. Red. Is something? Let's see. Yellow is what? We just do this. There you go. Yellow. I'll fix that later. Is it F0? Anyway. So button highlight. We're going to say this is yellow 600 and the other one is yellow 800. Got it. Boom. What else? Gray is like, oh, let's do gray is text subdued. What I like to call that. So it's a little less dark. So this is gray 600. And actually, usually I think I usually prefix these with the word color, but these tokens are going to be so small that it's not really going to matter. Yeah, we got our text color, we got our background color, other contexts where colors could be used, borders. I'm not really using border colors here. You know, you name it. Wherever you apply a color or background color in CSS, are the different contexts where you might use those. And so depending on your app, it could be a lot. I mean, probably be a lot more than this, but maybe not. Who knows? Maybe you have like a really simple app that's even less colorful than this. So that's colors. The third level of tokens, I probably won't get into it because it's for this project because it's kind of overkill. But the third level is component tokens, right? So this is like you think of a button. A button has a background color, it has a foreground color, it has a border radius potentially, it has a hover color, right? And so you can basically componentize all of those things. So it would be, you know, like basically button, background color, button, you know, etc. And maybe you have variants, like you have your primary and secondary buttons. So it'd be like button primary background color, button secondary background color. And the idea here is that you can basically control your entire app's visual styles via the tokens. And so particularly if you have a cross-platform design system where web, iOS, and Android are all consuming your tokens, you can control the visual style of all three regardless of how those are implemented. So as long as they're pulling in the correct, the correct tokens, I can update those token files and I can change across all three platforms the color of a button, or I can change I can go up a level to contextual tokens and change the background color of the body, or I can change, like, let's say we had a rebrand and our yellow color has been tweaked to another color. Like at Groupon, we changed our green color from one hex value to another, and it was like this all hands on deck, like 6 months thing, because we had to change it on, all across the app and on all of our marketing. And if we used design tokens, we could have just, at least for the app, we could have just updated it in one place. It would have taken one person like 2 minutes. And so that's kind of the idea, is that this basically means that your tokens are the single source of truth for your visual styles for your thing. So I'm not going to go that deep on this project because it's really not that complicated. So let's talk about the other things that I might tokenize. You have color, you have type, you have, that's annoying. You have spacing, right? And then those are kind of the three main ones. And then you might have stuff like, I'm just going to make a list here of stuff that I'm not going to use for this project, but that you might include here. You might have borders, like border width, border radius. Actually, we'll add borders. Go ahead and add borders, but border width, z index. You could have what else? Pretty much any HTML, any CSS value that you might have, you can tokenize it, right? And so, ideally, almost all of your CSS is pulling from tokens, whether they're contextual tokens or global tokens or component tokens, to give you that kind of consistency, right, across all your stuff. So we're not using z-index on this project. Let's just skim through this CSS and see what we might tokenize here. So we have so type. We have font size. We have font weight. We have font family, right? We have style. We're not really going to use that. Size, weight, and family. I mean, pretty much it. And then so for spacing, we basically have different spacing values. What I like to do here is just create a scale of spacing. Instead of calling this like large, medium, small, I just call it what the value is in pixels. So like, let's just say spacing 16. This is 1 rem, right? So the default body type size is 16 pixels or 1 rem. So by using rems, I can make everything relative. So I'll do the spacing in rem, I'll do the type in rem, and then everything kind of uses the same values roughly. So here, I can go in here and I have, let's do font sizes. Fonts, and this you could, same thing, you could do, what I like to do is I'll do, well, that's more, yeah, we'll do font size and then we'll do contextual for the other stuff. So let's see. So our largest font, I think, is 4 rem. Font size, we might have to adjust this scale here. Let's just go through it. Let's see, we got 2 rem. Got 2 rem. Inherit. So that inherits from the body, which we have set to 1 rem. So here, let's just do this. We'll do run rem, 2 rem, 4 rem, and I think on desktop use some larger sizes. So scroll down here to the media queries. So we have 1.25. rem, right? And then 4 rem. And that's pretty much it. So we have our, let's see, what do we, these are our subheadings. This is 2 rem. That's 4 rem. And here I think this is Still 2 rem, is that right? Yeah, that's pretty much it. And then on here, I think we have, oh, I didn't do H3 yet. Well, for now, we'll just roll with this because this is all we have in our project. So we have, we'll say font size default, maybe, right? We don't really have anything larger than that, so we'll call this font size large. Larger. These are dumb names. But it kind of gives us the, you know, if you have like a more robust type scale, you can get crazy with this. But since the default, I mean, I guess we could just do default. Usually you have stuff that's lower than the default, but in this case, I'm just making all this large type. Large, larger, and largest. So we'll just go with that. That works for me. And then what I like to do is pair these. So the default, let's see, in our body, the default line height is 1.5, so that's 1.5 rem. Same deal. Weight, sorry, not font weight, line height. Line height default is 1.5. For font size large, that just inherits from the body. Font size 1.25. And so you can pair these, and even if they're the same value, that's fine, because it logically, like, you're pairing them anyway. Line height larger, so whatever the line height for 2 rems is. I didn't do this very scientifically when I when I was up at 2 in the morning writing this. Haha, 2.25 rem. And then line height largest. Be down here in the media query for 4 rem. Am I even? Each one. Line height 1. So basically 4 rem. So there you go. There's that. Font weight. We basically have font. I just call these by the kind of font name. So you'd have font weight. Actually, maybe font weight light is 300. Font weight 600 is medium. No, 600 is semi-bold. Although in the case of the font I'm using, I think it's just bold, so I'll just call it bold. And this is 600. Usually, like, bold is 700 and 600 is semi-bold, but this will work. And then font family, I have 2 font families. I have, let's say, font family heading is Dottie's vanilla. No, sorry, chocolate. Sans serif. That's good enough for me. Font family body. Dottie's vanilla. Sans serif. So hey, if the font doesn't load, whatever, who cares? So that's type. And then spacing, again, I just like to use pretty simple stuff here. go through here and look for spacing values where I'm using margin or padding. So here's a 0.25, which is 4 rem. So I can't spell. Spacing 4. And then got 1 rem. Adding 1 rem. 0.75 and 1.25. So that's spacing 12. And spacing 20. You can use like whatever values you want to use. But typically, like, you want them like to be, instead of being every like 4 numbers, you want the higher you get to be more spacing between them, because it creates a better hierarchy typically. Because if you're just doing like, you know, like even 12 and 16 and 20, it's a little tight. Like I would probably just do like 4, 8, 16, 24, 32, something like that. Or maybe even skip 24, who knows. But like the more space there is between those values, the more clear the hierarchy becomes. But this works. This is fine. Let's like for in here we'll do like because I have a lot of like offset stuff. We'll just say I'm just gonna call this offset default. It's 2 pixels. You can express that as rem too, but in this case, if it's like under 4, I'm just like it's pixels is fine. So that'll be like, we'll use that like this text underline offset, and also the button or offsetting this by 2 when you click on it. So that's a good one to throw in while I'm thinking about it. Spacing. Let's see. There's a 2 rem. That's 32. Can't type. Spacing 32. 2 rem. So the idea behind this is like a lot of times you'll have spacing, and you'll make it like t-shirt sizing, or you'll just do like space 1, space 2, space 3, space 4, and nobody, like when they're in there working with it, knows what that means off the top of their head usually. So I like to just use these values because people know that spacing 16 means 16 pixels, whether that's on web using rems, or on native using like DPs, or whatever weird values that they use on there. But that way, like when we're talking about a visual design, we can say spacing 16 and everyone knows what that means, even if the implementation is slightly different. And then if you need to add like, if I need to add a 24 in here, I don't have to like change my whole t-shirt sizing and break a value, right? I can just throw in a 24 there, and it's fine, and everybody knows what 24 means. And it's not like, oh, spacing 5 means this now, and spacing 6 is what spacing 5 used to be, and etc., right? So I think that's pretty much it. 2 rems, 1 rems, 1.5. Let's throw a 1.5 in there. See, so we got a spacing 24 is 1.5 rem. So sometimes, like as I'm going through this too, I might find that I'm not even using this value except maybe in one space, and I can kick this out and just go from 16 to 24. And so, it's easier to like have more tokens than you need and whittle it down than try and start with the bare minimum and risk like having to add to it and screw up your whole like naming convention. So when I'm starting, I just try and capture like whatever exists currently. So like if I were auditing some site and they had, 100 colors in their palette, I would just make things for all those colors, and then as I find that I'm using them or not using them, I can narrow that down to a more reasonable palette. Okay, so we have our spacing. That's easy. Done. Borders. This should... I don't think we have, like, border... we don't have, like, a border width. But you can do border width, border radius, 1 rem we have on here. So you could even, like here, you could tie this to the spacing, but, usually I just don't bother. We'll just say 1 rem is the border radius on the main section, and then on the cards, the card images has a border radius as well, which is 0.5 rems. Oh, there's another margin bottom, so this is spacing 8. So again, we might not use all of these, but it's better to have them and not them initially around. Okay, border radius 1M. We'll say this is border radius small. Border radius large is we'll say this is large, and then small is 0.5. Actually, we'll say this is medium, because I think on forms I'm gonna want I didn't comp those out yet, but I want border radius small to be 4 pixels. Right? So that's borders. We'll just keep that its own thing. What else? What else can we tokenize here? You can look for things like text shadows. I have some text shadows going on here. I don't think anyone's done a text shadow in like 10 years, so I'm bringing it back, baby. So I could either like put all these text shadow values in there, or I could just call this like text shadow default. That's that. I can remove this. And then anywhere I use this, if I want to tweak this, I can do that in one place. And actually, I'm going to take this and put this up here with the rest of my text shit. To keep stuff where I can find it. Text shadow. Oh, see, so we have 2 of these. So we go like text shadow small, and then text shadow large, where we like double it up. So that's 224. Go. Same color. And what else? Oh, box shadow. Here. Put a box shadow on the button. We'll just call this box shadow default, because I really only use it in one place. On the button box shadow. This is different than the text shadow values. Same color though. Probably tokenize that even. We could say shadow. Just snag this guy. There's our shadow color. We tweak that independently. So now everywhere we have this RGBA, replace that box shadow default. Is in here also shadow. So you could tokenize all these, right? You could do like X offset, Y offset, blur, text shadow, X offset, if you wanted to get granular about it. In this case, I'm not going to bother because this is a pretty small set of tokens to begin with. So we have border radius, Oh, dim gray. There you go. Big caption A. I think let's see. It's a good. I think I got rid of that, but I'll keep that in there for other stuff. Like you might use this gray 600 also for like placeholder text in a form input, and then have the form text be black. So that's another good use case for that. What else? Oh, color midnight blue. That was my text hover color, but I don't think I have any links. We'll say we'll just say, even though this doesn't exist, text interactive hover. We'll say highlight blue 600, 800. Or why not? Yeah. Let's reverse this. 800, 600. So we don't have a blue 800. So we can make one. Oops. So this is midnight blue. Let's see, what site was that? Colors. It's called HTML color codes. Oh, this is not the one I used, but this one's fun too, because you can get the hex value. So I can jump to a color that's blue. So we were using midnight blue. This guy. So that's a nice dark color. That'll be our blue 800. So there we go. Blue 600, we got yellow 600, blue 600, white, black, gray, shadow. Perfect. I like it. It's looking good. This is pretty much all of our CSS values that we're going to use, except for stuff like, position relative or stuff like that, which you don't really need to tokenize. So component tokens, contextual tokens. Okay, so we got our tokens. Now we can build this stuff out. So in this file, what we want to do is import, I can't spell, import, let's check the syntax for this, I'm doing it correctly. It's our design system, tokens, oops, that's not what I want. I want is this guy, import tokens. Let's paste that from there. Tokens, right? Paste tokens, underscore, wait, yeah, underscore tokens. Okay, so the way this works is the directory I called underscore tokens just so it comes first in this list. And then the file itself I had an underscore because when you do the import, it won't compile this separately into its own like CSS file, right? So I'm only calling this file dod dogsofdevs.css. So it's only compiling this file. It's not compiling any of these other Sass files that I create if they have an underscore, because I don't need them to. I just need this one CSS file, which is, this is going to be the end result of that. So close that, go back into my source. So we got our tokens, and I can close that. So what's next? Base. Okay, let's go back to Andy Bell. Andy Bell has a great article called A Modern CSS Reset. And this is awesome. I love this thing. You can just copy this to the clipboard, and we're going to call this base file, call this underscore reset as CSS. And we're going to pop this in here, and let's talk about some of the stuff. So this is pretty common. adding box sizing border box to everything and its pseudo elements, removing default margins on several block elements. Let me consult my version of this because I've added a few things. So in let's see, reset here. What are we doing? This goes H1, mine goes H through H6. Oh, I also have lists, stuff on lists in there. So OL and UL and LI. Figure, fig caption. Sorry, Andy, if I'm butchering your thing here. And you could add H5 and H6 if you were using those, but I'm not going to be using those for this project. And then, oh, interesting, this is new. Remove list styles on UL. So what he used to have is if it had a class, that usually meant you wanted to reset the list styles to none and remove the padding. But this, he's essentially saying if you have a role attribute of list, then you're basically, you want it to act like a list without styling it like a list, which I think that's pretty good. Although it seems like more work because typically like the class is sufficient. You're already doing that, but this is probably like adds an element of accessibility to it, which is smart. So I don't know. You could go either way, but oh, so I removed padding from these as well, just because. So I'm actually just gonna copy this. Sorry, Andy. Focus within. This is new. Scroll behavior smooth. Okay, so that's this basically, and he added the focus within. Body. So we're setting the min height to 100 VH so that if you have a short page like a 404 where you have a header and a footer, the footer doesn't like get pushed up to the middle because the main content is very short, so it'll keep that footer pushed down. And what else? A without a class, text decoration skip link auto. So A elements that don't have a class get default styles. That's fine. Image, oh, and now he's added picture. That gives max width of 100 and display block to images. Inherit fonts for inputs and buttons. This is great. A lot of times inputs will have, even if you change the body font, it will, the font of the buttons will be like the default browser style. So like Helvetica or Arial or something, whatever sans serif the default is. So this basically says, okay, I want to also use my body font on input elements, which is great. And then he has prefers reduce motion, and that's basically kind of expands on this. This is like an old one, an old version of reset. So then I also, I have a nice little shame file here where it's like stuff that I'm embarrassed that's in here that I don't want in there. Then I have global, so this is like other stuff on top of, not on top of the reset, but we'll get into that. So reset, that's good. So let's go in here and we're gonna do, I like to just make a space between these different folders. So this is gonna be base reset. And I think I can delete a lot of this stuff because this was essentially the same thing. That may be the label block. Inherit, inherit, inherit. Okay. So we'll save that, and then let's see what this looks like. So we have no margin now. No margin on the text. Yeah, so this should work. We got a nice basic reset to start from. So instead of like, the usual CSS reset was just kill all the browser styles, which is like complete overkill. Then you had normalized CSS, which came along later, that was basically like, we don't want to reset everything, we just want everything to look roughly similar across different browsers, so it accommodated for things like that. With Andes is like even smaller, and it kind of, just does the absolute minimum of stuff you would need to reset on every project, so that you're not doing this on multiple classes, right? Like a lot of times you'll make some kind of horizontal list, and you'll have to do list style none, right? And reset the margin and the padding, and so this basically just does that for you, and then you have to add that stuff back in, certainly. But I don't know, I just find this super useful, and as usual, I'm mad that I didn't think of it before Andy. So that's that. Close this guy, close this guy. All right, so back to our design. Just kind of going down the list here. Base, we've got our reset. Let's see. So global, right? That's kind of the next thing. It's just like what's common across all pages, and it's usually like body styles and stuff like that. So we got base. We'll add a new file in here called _global CSS, and so let's take a look at this. We can probably just borrow a bunch of this. So let's see. This is already in our reset. I'll usually put this in a separate file or in a text thing. But we can do like body, background color, and this is where we use our tokens. We want our background to be blue 600. Actually, we don't want that. What we want is the contextual token, background body, so that if we ever change this color of blue, or what have you, then that'll be updated. So background body. Actually, usually what I'll do is I'll call these like, I'll prefix these with color text body, because then like what's a color token versus what's a text token. Yeah, it's verbose, but it all compiles to the value, and so it doesn't really matter for the purposes of development. So color, background body. So we'll save that, and actually we'll say the default color is color, call that color text body, right? No. We'll say color text inverse for now. Because the blue is the main body, and then the white is the main. So main will have its own thing. So let's just go in here. We'll add base global, and we'll check the site to make sure this stuff's all coming through. So here's our tokens. All that stuff doesn't get pulled in because it's tokens. Doesn't get converted to CSS. We could probably add some kind of Sass attribute that strips the comments here if we wanted to, and minifies this and all that good stuff. We have our reset here, and here's our global, right? So if we go back to here, there we go. So we can do so base. I also do I do a typography. Oops, not that. I want it. space. I do one called typography that's like and actually one underscore here so that it doesn't compile it. So stuff like links, right? Like I want the change the default link color or something like that. I would do typography because you're putting it on the actual element itself, which I don't know. One thing we're experiencing at Provi is like instances where we've done stuff like that, like applying stuff directly to an element becomes problematic, and so we have to scope stuff in a container called so the CSS framework is called Fizz. We'll scope stuff to a class called Fizz styles, so everything is prefixed with Fizz, but then also it all lives within Fizz styles so that it doesn't conflict with existing styles until we can convert everything to use Fizz. So potentially like this could be prefixed with Fizz, but then you'd have to like add classes to everything. I don't like to do, and particularly for something this small, there's not much point. So let's see, do I have any generic link style? Not really, it's all kind of like within the thing, so we'll just do that for now. Actually, we'll say color. And you could do like, create different ones for these, or, link and hover and active and visited, but for the purposes of this, I'm just going to do color text inverse instead of interactive. You can do interactive inverse, but for now, I'm just going to do that. And I'm going to close dogs of dev for now until I commit that. Oh, duh, I have to add this to this file. So that's typography. Boom. There we go. Okay. So let's do some, what else? That should be, let's see, is there any other body stuff we want to do here? Let's shake it out. Background color, font weight, X width, I'll do that in layout. Display grid, that in layout. So yeah, this is super basic. Let's go into components and let's make a new file in here, and we'll just call this type, not to be confused with typography, but these are type components. So these will be prefixed with well, first we'll do body. We want to set some default body styles. So we have font family. The default font family is going to be font family body, right? The default font, line height going to be text. Line height default. And default font size default, boom. That's kind of like already a given, but I like to be explicit about it. And then let's see, we've already done the color. I want the font weight to be font weight body, font weight light. And that's it for the text. So I think we can do that. Because we haven't loaded the font, this is still going to use that. And let's see, on a typography actually, and we'll say text decoration none. And then on hover, oops, that should be a hover. Text decoration underline, and we'll say text decoration offset. I think that's a thing. Is just offset default. Let's see if that does anything. Yeah, there you go. All right, so we want this to be a not class. All right, yeah. So any A where there's not a class name. So if I were to go into my index here, my base, go up to here, and I give this a class like boo. Now it has this again, right? Because I want to maybe do something different when it's a H1. I mean, in this case, I'm probably not gonna do it, but like on a button that looks like a link, this guy, this will be class button. We'll do that in a little bit. Unknown property text decoration offset. What's up?
I'm gonna run to Carnival and get some groceries.
Okay.
Okay.
My ear out. I'm doing a little web tutorial. Should probably eat my lunch too. Property, unknown property. Text decoration offset. Is that not what I had in here? Let's see. Text underline offset. All right. So we'll say a not class hover. There we go. Cool. So see how that looks. Looks the same. All right. 1 second while I unwrap this smoothie, courtesy of Panera. Today's stream is sponsored by Panera. Panera, please sponsor me. I like free smoothies and free soup. All right. What else we got in here? I apologize for eating before the stream, but you know, I got a baby in the house, and who has time? Who has time to eat, right? It's time for these things. All right, moving on. Components type. We want some headings. This is in typography actually, and then in type we want to do our actually, you know what, fuck it, let's just put this in typography also, because this is on the base body element. In type we want like our class names to be prefixed so that they don't conflict with other stuff. Not Bob, it's Dodd. Dogs of Dev. Heading, we just call these like, you know, heading 1. Oh, that's the other thing. So one thing I like to do, oh cool, now it's pulling in my fonts. One thing I like to do in typography is say H1, H2, H3, H4, font size inherit, and line height inherit. Line height inherit. And then save that, and then you'll see oh, and font weight inherit. Okay, so essentially what this does is I I have an H1 here, but I'm not. What I'm not doing is doing an H1 for the aesthetics of it, right? Like I'm a dev and I have styles that are tied to an H1 or browser styles. I might use a heading based on its visual styles and not on its semantic value. So like maybe semantically it should be an H1, but like that's way too big. I need it to be like whatever the H3 size is, so they'll use an H3. So to avoid that, I like to reset these, and you can go all the way to H6, but I'm not going to be using H5 or H6 in this project. And just set it to inherit the body style. So then they're forced to go in here and say, I got to use DOD heading 1, which we can refer to this guy here. And the style is, see, actually we can say on anything that's prefixed with star equals, anything that contains DOD heading. So that's all the headers. We want this to use font family heading. So now I don't have to repeat that a bunch of times for heading 1, heading 2, heading 3. And then we want it to be font weight bold. We're essentially slapping that back on there, but you know, maybe some of your heading styles are not bold, right? So you would do those independently in here. So Dottie's chocolate, font weight bold. So the default for H1 is going to be font size larger, I think. And we'll just pair the line height in here just in case. It's going to be line height larger. And then I'm not going to add the margin because I don't like adding margins on typographical elements because we want to separate like what the type looks like from how its relationship to other things. So a lot of times what will happen if you tie the margin to the heading, you might have designs where like the margin varies between an H1 and so you want to use a utility for that, where the utility is like, instead of doing a tailwind approach where I'm like putting what the font size and the line height is in the markup, I want to style what the element should look like. The component, this is part of the cool methodology, right? I want to style the component itself and use the utilities to style how that component is displayed in relation to other components around it. So these utilities would be like margins, applying margins, laying things out with flexbox, things like that, applying padding to like a card, for example. And then layout is like more of like the page-based layout. So we'll get to that in a little bit. But so we have an H1, we have an H2. Let's copy this guy. Call this DOD heading 2. And this is font size large, I think. Is that right? Or let's see. Oh, this is just inherit. So this is going to be font size default. This will be default. And then we'll bump this up on mobile. Oh, that's the other thing we can put in our tokens is our breakpoints. So we can say that we'll put this in the global tokens that are, we'll just use one breakpoint for the purposes of breakpoint. I'll just usually call this breakpoint medium. And we'll just say it's like 700 pixels. I don't like using devices for breakpoints because they change so rapidly. It's just like, here's a good breakpoint where like stuff's, you know, generally starts to break. So here you can see this is, actually I don't even think I'm using breakpoints except for the font. But this is using grid to do the layout of the squares. But then you can see up here at 700 pixels the font changes. The default font size changes. So so breakpoint medium, save that, and then I can go in here and say at media min width equals breakpoint medium. I want to do other stuff. So these two, for example, this will be largest. This would be large. So if I go in here, I have to apply the classes. First of all, I have to add type to DOD. This is going to be in component. This is going to be type. That's there. Whoop! Cannot find style sheet to import. Oh, sorry, components plural. That's helpful. Okay, and then in index, I want to start using my classes. So class dogs of dev heading 1. Bang, there it is. And then what else? Just leave that for now. Get the point. So we've added this, and then if I reduce my screen width, oops, how'd you know? If I reduce my screen width at 700 pixels, the scale should, right? Bada bing, bada boom. So we can actually do that as well in typography with the body size. So I think what we want to do is do our steal it from here. Query. And we'll just pull this in here as well. We want the font family, that's going to be the same, so we can remove that. And the font height can remain the same, but we want this to be large. Just to bump that up a little to 20 pixels, so you can see here it's a little bit bigger, the default text, but then when we go down to 700, it's back to 16. Cool. So we got that. We got type. What else we got here? Let's do a heading 3 just for shits and giggles. That large. Oh, this should be larger. Ugh. And then H3 will be large. Larger, largest. Okay, well, we don't really have an H4, do we? We really just have H3, so we'll do H3 here. H3. Larger, large. And this is default. Yeah, there we go. So with that, we'll go in here and we'll just pull out H4. So we're not using it. Grat. Okay. Perfect. So that's our H1. P. What do we do here? Why this is so small? There we go. Oh, I have this as a H2, so we'll change. So now we can have a P that's semantically a P, but we can style it like a H2, right? So we go over here. Oh, that's way too big. So maybe we make this age 3. Oops, or age 23. Sure, why not? In honor of MJ. There we go. Dogs are people who make websites. And then if we bump this down, smaller. Boom. There we go. So now let's make, we got some type stuff. Let's make our button component. So we'll go in here and file, we'll call this buttons, even though there's going to be just one button. And we'll say DOD button. And then I think this just inherits the font size and line height. I don't know why this looks so weird. There we go. Alright, so DOD button. We'll say background color is color background button. And color is color text body. A border radius, which is border radius small. Let's try that for now. Might bump it up to no, yeah, that's small. Let's see. Oh, we want the border radius to be let's go to global, and we'll say that button has a border of 0 by default. Even though I'm not even, this isn't a button. This is going to be a link, but it's going to look like a button. Border radius, font size inherit, and font, I don't need to do font family inherit because that's already in our thing. But we will apply some padding to this, which will be spacing 12, spacing 20. Just do 20 looks good. Let's see, we got border radius on there, box shadow. Box shadow, bringing it back, guys. Box shadow default. So there's that. Buttons will go into here, and we will add the buttons file. Okay. And so then, so that's pulling that in. Now we just need to apply it to this button link that we have. Class DOD button. Let's see what it's like. Whoa. That's interesting. Why is this weirdly layered on top of each other like that? Oh, this might need to be display block. Yeah. So we'll say, where's the button? So that's display block. And, I guess we also, if it has a class, a not class, shouldn't that not have an underline? Oh, a not class should have text decoration none. Yeah. Consult my reset here. That has class, so not class. What am I looking for? Type a not class. Why does this have a I see, because it's an A, it's getting the underline, and this is not being applied to it, even though it has a class on it. I feel like that should work, but it doesn't. So, in the interest of time, I'm just going to add text decoration none on here. Save that. Go. I'm going to do font weight bold. Does that look too bold? Oh yeah, that looks pretty good. I mean, let's see. You know what? We'll say this is actually inline block. It'll behave like a block element, but it will be inline, like so. Let's do some utilities here, just because this looks crazy right now. So kind of see what a button looks like. So I can click on here now, and this will take me to this page with our form elements, which this looks insane too. So we'll get to that. Let's see, and then we want typography type. Say text decoration none. It's a link. Here we go. All right, let's do some. We won't worry about. Well, yeah, let's do some layout. Sure, we'll just go right down the line here. Add a new file in here. Just call this layout. Underscore layout. So in here, I like to do basically, I'm gonna be lazy and apply this to the body just because I can. But essentially, the body will have display grid and grid template rows. Auto 1FR auto. This basically makes it so that the header and footer take up as much space as they need to, and then the main section takes up the rest of the viewport, even if the content is smaller than that. And let's see, we want to apply margin. We'll just do this explicitly, margin left auto, margin right auto. Center it. Get it a max width. We don't have a token for this yet, but I'm going to say, let's say page max width. 2 tokens. And say page max width 1080 pixels. That. Let's just see what this looks like real quick. Get rid of this guy. Centered. Oh, duh, I have to bring it into this file. So now we have layout. A little redundant, but on a more complex project, you could potentially have several different layouts. Oh, okay, this is the dog page. Okay, so then we can say, so if you had multiple layouts, you might apply a class to the, instead of putting this on the body, you would apply a class to a container and call it the name of the layout. So let's say you had a default layout, which is maybe like header, main, footer, and maybe you have a sidebar layout that's like main, sidebar left, header, sidebar left, main, footer might be a different layout. And so you can put that, you could apply that class on the body if you want, or you could put it in a container. And then typically what I'll do is I'll use data classes, data attributes to put the name of the grid area. So instead of saying like giving it a class of header, I'll make it data attribute, data grid area, and then I can apply styles to the data grid area. So let's just do that. We'll call this DOD layout default. And then we can go in our base and on the body class DOD layout default, and this should go back to what it was. And then so now we can say in the header, this is data grid area header. So now instead of saying like, I mean, you could just do DOD layout default and then just put header under it. You don't need to say like, you know, apply classes to every child element. But I can say that within DOD layout default, if it has a data grid area header, then I want this to have like padding. Let's see what I did in here. Padding of 1 rem, just spacing 16, and then text align center, right? So now if we go in here, boom, right? And then similarly with, now we can just do same thing, but with the main grid area. And then we'll have another one with the footer. And so we can apply kind of like general styles, not just like the grid styles, but we can give them some padding and any kind of like text stuff. And then then we have our media query, right? Because we have a little bit of stuff happening on here where we want this, for instance, to be left aligned on large screens. We text align left, and I don't think I changed the padding. Yeah. So header main gonna be, copy this. Main and footer. There we go. So now I can target these in my layout. So let's see, what do we do in here? Our main. So our main in this layout has a background color. Color background. Oh. So okay, so we need a thing for that. What I do typically, if the body color is not if the body color is not white, I have to say color background surface. It's white. And you could have like different surfaces, different like background surface blue for like an alert or something like that, but it's just like, you know, specifically background color. Color background surface, and the color is color text body. Sounds right. And then what else? We have padding of 2 rems. And then the layout default, the main is actually its own layout, right? So I'm not going to do that here. I'm going to make that its own class. I'm not going to, because you might have a main that doesn't have that isn't a grid layout, right? So you want to tie that to another class. Text color. So that's pretty much it. We'll do that. Oh, and then we want border radius. That's on this though. That's only on desktop. So we'll do that. We might adjust the padding even, but here we're going to apply a border radius of large, border radius large. Let's see what this is looking like here. Look at that. It's starting to look like the thing. We just got to add some into the text in here even. There is. There is. I don't know where it lives, but oh, because the text color is white. It's inheriting. Okay, so color text body white? No. Data grid area main. Color text body. Background surface. Interesting. This overriding? No. So oh, I didn't put the friggin' class on it, that's why. I need to go into dog page. No. This is the dog page. Here we go. So here is this is my card. So this I want to have a class of dogs on dev heading 2. That should be sufficient for that, but it's inheriting from the body and from the main. Very interesting. Close some of these. Our reset. Close our dog pages. POD heading. Oh, font color. Do I need to do that too? Color. Inherit. Oh. Okay. Yeah, I'm trying to be slick, and it's biting me in the ass here. This is the dog submission form. Buttons are good. Base. DoD layout default. Let's look at this guy. I see. Wait. Where is it getting the color from? Oh, wait, what? Did I like not close a link or something? That's gotta be it, right? That's a link. That's a link. Let's look at the index and pull this out for a second. Oh, that's exactly it, because this isn't a link, and so I need this to be like class foo. Hey, there it is. All right. So I was starting to lose my mind there for a second. All right, we'll just leave that for now as class foo. We'll take that out shortly. So what else? Main. And this is footer. I don't know why I put layout like a nut. What do we style on the footer? Just put some padding on there. Oops, that's on there. Let's see, did I have anything on the footer up here? Footer. Text align center. Padding. Spacing 16. There we go. It's getting there. Okay, so let's make another layout. We'll call this DOD media grid. And then we'll go in here, and that was on main. Grid template columns, grid gap, display grid. Pretty much just these 3 lines. Let's see. Doesn't have. That should do it. So DOD media grid, we put this on main. So you see what I did there? I have the styles of the layout of this default layout on main, but then I'm applying a class of media grid to apply the kind of subgrid to the content within. So when I save this, if we go back here, now we should have these guys, right? So I gotta add some image classes that square this off. So we could do like components, images, and we'll say we'll have this. Oh, this is going to be a helper. Close that. Let's work on some helpers here real quick. I got maybe another 10 minutes before. So we'll do utilities. We'll do underscore images. This for now. Okay, so in this, we're going to say that we're going to have this image wrap class. Okay, but we're going to prefix this with dogs on dev. And let's see, we have some opportunities to tokenize here. Margin bottom is spacing 8. Border radius is border radius medium. That's pretty much it. All the rest can stay that. So we have image wrap here, utilities, images, can't spell, can go in here and apply that to our index. Will be okay, image. I have to wrap this image in a div. DOD image wrap. It bothers me that I abbreviated image on that class, but I can live with it. Okay, and then boom, there we go. Looking good. Let's see, what's in our layout in this footer? We're also going to do font size, default, line height, default. It's too big. There we go, better. We'll fix these links. So this whole thing is a link. This goes to Emily's page. Whoa, that's crazy. So we'll have to do some conditionals there where we only want this to occur. We'll do a conditional right here. If title equals I can't. Okay. Title equals dogs of dev. Or you could say if URL is probably better. URL is the home page. And we'll do end if. Spacing here. There we go. That's fixed. Now if you go back here, it should be the grid. Nope, what the hell? Okay. If page, is this what I want? There it is, page URL. Emily. There it is, bang. So now we're only adding this class if it's the home page. And this is why I separated the layout from the layout of the page from the layout within the main. We could do cool. All right, let's add some spacing utilities. So I like to use Nathan Curtis's concept. He has an article here. Nathan Curtis, space in design systems. I refer to this quite often, but he talks about kind of how do we communicate different types of space. And this is kind of where I borrowed the spacing increments, like using these like greater numbers in between the larger you get so that you have a clearer hierarchy. I tend to move somewhere in between there. But talking about like linear versus this kind of geometric progression. And so I kind of use something that's a little in between that because I feel like 16 to 32, I need a 24 in there, and a 20 would help too. But maybe, you know, your mileage may vary. But more importantly, like the vocabulary for space. So he talks about inset being like the padding within, inline being the margin between elements, and then stack being, inline being horizontal margin essentially, and stack being vertical margin, and then squished being like maybe it has less padding on top than it does on the sides. So this is kind of the vocabulary that I use when I'm making these spacing utilities. So really the big one is DoD stack, and we give it a number. So I just want to like, let's look and see what this is, right? So inspect element. So the H1 has bottom margin of 4, so we'll say this fizz. Dot stack 4 is margin bottom spacing 4, right? And then we can just like replicate this thing. We might need a few different ones. We'll just say we'll use like all of our spacing values, basically 8. We might not use all of these, but we can delete them later. 16. Uh-oh. Kids up. Let's just do this for now so I can show this to you. We will pull in spacing in here, utilities. And then on our base here, we can apply DOD stack 4. And then we'll say DOD stack 16. And that let's see, the header I think has padding, so we should need that. And there you go. Now we have some spacing there. We've got our grid layout. We might want to. I want another utility I do is a flexbox one. I'll show you. Utilities, new file. I'm gonna call this flex. Flex layout. Call this DOD flex row. Sorry, space between is what we want for this one. And this basically just says display flex and align items. I can't spell. Center and justify content space between. Yeah. And then also what we want to do is space between, not last child. We want to give this a little margin. Margin right spacing, we'll say 16. And then pull this into here, flex layout. Okay, and then in our base, we can apply flex layout to this header. DOD space between. Bang. There it is. So you have space between, and then if this, if this were longer, that rule basically applies 16 of space here, just so these don't bump into each other at weird heights. Let's on our layout, one last thing here. On our layout, this whole thing, give it padding of spacing 16. Except the bottom, we'll say spacing 16, spacing 16, 0, spacing 16. There it is. This is looking like close to the finished product. I have to wrap it up. I appreciate you sticking with me for 2 hours. I'll do another one of these where I build out the rest of the site, and we'll get it looking. We'll get this thing launched this weekend. We're gonna do it tomorrow. We're gonna have this thing launched and ready to take submissions. So thanks again for watching. I will catch you next time. Find the button.